Good evening. I'm Spot On Weather meteorologist Matthew Euler, and showing you a picture tonight to start this video, showing a lot of snow. This picture actually was taken out west towards Montana, and you can see there's a lot of snow. Looks like a winter wonderland. And the title of tonight's forecast video is Winter Strikes Early, and let me tell you something, it is looking very cold. Unusually and unseasonably cold here in the short term as well as in the extended outlook. And I'm going to show you some graphics tonight to show you exactly what's coming. All right, so I'm going to start off with just a basic 4 slides showing you the different cold surges. This chill, this unseasonably cold weather is going to come in surges or waves. And the first surge, we're sitting today on Tuesday, November the 5th, and we do have a cold front projected to go through southeast Virginia this evening, overnight, and it will be slightly cooler tomorrow on Wednesday. That would be Wednesday the 6th of November. It's going to be chillier tomorrow on Wednesday the 6th. We'll cool down to high temperatures in the upper 50s to near 60 across southeast Virginia. But I'm really targeting in this video the real stronger cold surges that are coming on. So the first surge, cold surge, is going to happen on the 8th and 9th, this Friday and Saturday, 8 and 9 November 2019. The image on the left shows the 8th of November. The image on the right shows the 9th of November. And what's going to happen is we're going to have the jet stream dipping down, carving out a trough across the Eastern U.S., and we have that trough in the east, and we have a warmer ridge out west in the western part of the U.S. And so by Friday, we have a strong cold front. By Friday morning, a strong cold front is passing through southeast Virginia in the mid-Atlantic. We're getting a strong northerly wind on Friday as the front clears the coast. There's a little bit of moisture that we may see right before frontal passage, or maybe slightly behind frontal passage. But overall, these blue thickness lines in the image on the left show much colder air, much lower thickness values moving into the mid-Atlantic from the north. 1,034 millibar high situated in the vicinity of northeastern Missouri. The image on the right shows Saturday, and Saturday that baroclinic or Canadian high pressure system drifts off to the southeast, and the pressure at that point is 1,028 millibars. And our thickness values dip below 540 decameters by Saturday morning. So we are going to see high temperatures in the cold surge number 1 this Friday the 8th and Saturday the 9th. High temperatures on Friday will be struggling to hit 50 degrees for a high, with overnight lows dipping down into the middle to upper 30s. And then the image on the right, Saturday night and Sunday morning, could also be very cold. Saturday's high temperature most likely going to be in the low 50s, with overnight lows again dropping into the 30s with high pressure nearly overhead. Now that's cold surge number 1. Cold surge number 2 is stronger, and it comes in the 11th and 12th of November 2019. The graphic on the left shows the 11th of November. That would be Veterans Day, the Veterans Day holiday. Many folks have that day off from work in observance of all our tremendous veterans out there. And the image on the left shows a 1,041 millibar high coming down out of Canada with very strong north and northwesterly winds. We have a strong cold front about to pass through southeast Virginia by Monday morning, the 11th. And we have very, very cold air behind that front. A little bit of rain shower activity into southeast Texas on the leading edge of the front as well. But it is going to get very, very cold for this time of year with this kind of pattern. Image on the right shows the next day on Tuesday, November 12th, and thickness values are crashing down between 534 and 540 decameter thickness. And we still have a general north-northeast wind at that point in time, and again, very cold, unseasonably cool for November standards even. So Monday the 11th and Tuesday the 12th, we're looking at high temperatures in the upper 40s, struggling to reach 50 degrees during the day. Overnight lows are going to drop down into the 30s. Now let's look at cold surge number 3. This follows the previous two around the 13th of November, and the image on the left shows the thickness chart again. At this point in time, the trough really amplifies even deeper, and we're looking at 528 decameter thickness around southeast Virginia, with 1,032 high situated over northern Illinois. On the front side of that highway, we have colder northerly winds coming straight from the north out of eastern Canada down into the Virginia area as well as the Carolinas. So that surge is kind of like a reinforcing shot of colder air, Arctic air, and we're only looking at high temperatures again in the upper 40s by next Wednesday, the 13th of November. The image on the right shows the 500 millibar height anomalies. 500 millibars being about 18,000 feet in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. And look at the blue shading over the eastern U.S. That's a very deeply amplified trough. And the exact opposite is occurring out west. There's a ridge axis right along the U.S. west coast extending up into western Canada with drier and above normal temperatures out west. So we are in a interesting pattern here that doesn't seem like it wants to break. Cold surge number 4 will come in around the 17th of November, according to the latest model data. And I do have some model data coming in right now as I'm making the video. But this is not this weekend, but the following weekend, the weekend before Thanksgiving. And we have 1,028 millibar high situated over West Virginia. And again, the thicknesses are much lower across anywhere from Virginia northward into New England states by this point in time on Sunday, the 17th of November. The jet stream at this point is oriented pretty much northwest to southeast from Canada into the mid-Atlantic states. The image on the right shows those 500 millibar height anomalies again, the blue shading indicating lower than normal heights, and the pinkish salmon shading, the ridge retreats a little bit further west, retrogresses to the west over the northeastern Pacific by Sunday the 17th of November. But regardless, higher heights are over the eastern Pacific, and we have lower heights downstream with that trough and lower geopotential heights. So again, this pattern honestly is very impressive. I'm quite amazed. Normally you have, you get these occasional troughs that pass through. The temperatures may drop possibly below average for maybe a day or two across the mid-Atlantic this time of year, and then you usually see a rebound as an upper level ridge going to traverses the country from west to east. Well, we're not seeing that. This November is looking, according to the latest model data, to be a very cold one. Here's cold surge number 5 on around the 20th of November 2019. And again, the common theme here is the dip in the jet stream, and we're getting these cold Canadian high pressure systems that are coming down, traveling from the northwest to the southeast. And in this case, the image on the left shows 1,038 millibar high, and again, cold northerly winds as a front is about to move through southeast Virginia on the 20th of November. And then the image on the right again shows the blue shading over the east coast, which is the lower than normal heights. And again, the higher heights maintain themselves out over the northeastern Pacific. So we have 5 distinct cold surges that are inbound. This again, cold surge number 1. That will be this Friday, the 8th, and Saturday, the 9th of November. Cold surge number 2, the 11th and 12th of November. And this one's really going to pack a punch. And I'm going to show you some European model data tonight as well to kind of reinforce this. There's cold surge number 3 as a quick glance once again to show you. 4 and then 5. So, we're sitting on November 5th today. So for the next 2 weeks, we are going to have episodes of very cold air, unseasonably cold for November standards. For southeast Virginia specifically, average high temperatures this time of year is about 64 degrees Fahrenheit. We're going to be very lucky on some of the coldest episodes, the coldest days during these outbreaks to make it to 50. So we're looking at 15 degrees below normal in a lot of cases during the day. All right, so let's keep moving forward. See if I can get this to work. I'm freezing up right now. Whoops, got frozen there for a minute. Okay, so I'd go back out and come back in. And let's take a look at the European model now, as I indicated. Unseasonable cold. And that's really what I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you just a progression. Image on the left is the 6th of November. That'll be tomorrow, Wednesday, the 6th of November, 2018. We have some cooler air trickling down behind a cold front. And it's going to drop the temperatures down to about the upper 50s tomorrow on the 6th of November. Not that big of a deal. Keep in mind all these charts that I'm showing, these graphics, the green shading and the blue shading and the purple shading are below normal temperatures, while the orangish colors are above normal temperatures. So tomorrow on the 6th, the image on the left, 6th of November, not too bad. Temperatures cool off slightly. Then by the 7th of November, we do expect a little bit of a warming out ahead of that very strong cold front. By this point in time on on Thursday, the 7th, we have the cold air starting to move southeastward out of Canada once again. Image on the left shows the 8th of November. Now this is the stronger cold shot coming in this Friday. And you see the purple shading there from Illinois, Missouri, into the Ohio Valley, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky. Very cold temperatures that are going to start propagating towards the southeast toward the mid-Atlantic coast of Virginia. Image on the right shows Saturday. Look at that progression of the cold to the east, showing you the green colors and the purple shading. Green, by the way, according to the legend on the bottom there, I don't know if you can see it, but green indicates temperatures 11 to 13 degrees Fahrenheit below normal, while the purple shading indicates temperatures that are 18 to 22 degrees Fahrenheit below normal. So this tells you, number one, there's two impressive factors about these kind of cold waves this early in the year. First, the extent, the aerial extent of these cold waves, anywhere from the plains to the east coast. So it's covering a large area. Meanwhile, the Western U.S. is the orange shading where they have the ridge and above normal temperatures. So real interesting pattern setting up. We did not see this last year at all. Moving ahead now to Sunday, the 10th of November of the European model on the left. Look at that green shading all the way down to the deep south by Sunday. This Sunday, the 10th of November. Even those down in Dixie are not going to escape the below normal temperatures. It's going to be very chilly down there, their standards too. And then the image on the right shows Monday, the 11th of November, Veterans Day holiday. We see the purple shading again up in Canada and the Northern Plains. The cold is reloading once again as we get further down into the week. Here's the 12th of November on the left and then the 13th of November on the right. Look at the purple shading, the wide aerial extent. And we're looking at temperatures 18 to 22 degrees below normal in the purple shading. And it's just really, really impressive. So I'm moving ahead now. Image on the left is 14 November. Image on the right is European out to 15 November. Look at this. I mean, what's impressing me is the aerial extent, the coverage, as well as the duration. The duration of these reloading cold phases or waves all the way out through the 15th, there's really not much of a break. You can see the east is well below normal, while the west is well above normal. Ridge over the west and a trough over the east. So, and again, some of these Arctic blasts are reaching all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. So we're looking at December-like temperatures easily, maybe even early January type daytime temperatures and some of the coldest outbreaks, and we're only in the month of November. Now, you might ask, does a cold November mean it's going to be a cold winter? Or, does a warmer fall indicate a colder winter or vice versa? There's really no research that backs this up. So, my biggest concern is, if you're a winter enthusiast like me and you like the cold and you always hold out hope for some snow in the winter, my biggest concern is, are we dislodging all this Arctic air too early in the year? And now will December be mild? Because everything in the atmosphere is equal and opposite, just like Newton's law, equal and opposite reactions. So, we're going to be very much well below normal in November, it's looking like. Does that mean December is going to flip-flop and become well above normal? Will this pattern flip? Or will this be a reloading scenario throughout the winter? And that's really what I'm intrigued by tonight as I make this video. Right, here's the NOAA official outlook. I mean, this is really impressive. So NOAA uses probabilities. And you'll notice the legend on the bottom of each of these graphics, the one on the left and the one on the right. Now, the graphic shows you the probability of below normal temperatures in the darker blue shadings. Probability of above normal temperatures are in the reds and the maroon shadings. Image on the left runs from the period 11 to 15 November. Look at the eastern U.S. all the way down to the Gulf Coast. Very high confidence we're looking at a below normal scenario in temperatures. And look at the West Coast. Meanwhile, California is having a lot of above normal temperatures. Case of what goes up must come down in the atmosphere. Image on the right shows the 13th to the 19th of November. Look at this. Still, there's no change to this pattern. Look at the above normal temperatures out in the western U.S. and then up into Alaska, above normal, while the Midwest and eastern U.S. are in the cold still. So really, not much of a pattern change is expected. Now, I did throw these in here tonight, these graphics, to show you the day 8 to 14 hazards outlook. You can see the dates on there, 13 to 19 November. And you see the blue shading, the blue outline indicates much below normal temperatures, and they're pinpointing the time period from the 13th to the 15th of November. And you'll notice on the image on the left too, the graphic on the left, how they show heavy precipitation around the 13th, and it's going to be snow. It's going to be lake effect snow. Basically, that works off the principle of very warm lake waters in the Great Lakes, and we're going to have this incredible cold passing over those warmer Great Lake waters, and that's going to pick up heat and moisture. And yeah, those downwind of the Great Lakes have a great potential for some fairly significant lake effect snows as this lake effect snow machine gets turned on based on the colder winds, the colder air blowing over that relatively warmer water surface, the Great Lakes. Image on the right just highlights the probability, a high probability of much below normal temperatures in the area that is hashed by that darker blue line. Just incredible. This is from the Climate Prediction Center. And then the teleconnections. I always talk about this, the winter outlook, and throughout the winter when I make these videos, I always talk about these teleconnections. Look at the AO, the Arctic Oscillation forecast on the left. If you look at the bottom, very bottom graphic out through around the 15th and 16th and 17th of November, that the Arctic Oscillation really tanks and goes sharply negative. Image in the middle shows a slightly negative North Atlantic Oscillation, and the image on the right is the Pacific North American teleconnection, and initially it's negative. It's showing a negative tendency, a slightly negative tendency between 0 and -1 value the first couple days of November, but then it flips to positive. What does this mean? All these teleconnections, I talk about it in my videos, when they all align in the same direction. In other words, if they're all indicating below normal temperatures and trough of the eastern U.S., that is what's known as constructive interference, and that could amplify the potential for below normal temperatures. Here are the teleconnections again, just to show you at home. The Arctic Oscillation is the upper left, and when you have a negative phase of that Arctic Oscillation of the AO, we're going to get generally that type of jet stream configuration on the right, the negative phase, where we have higher pressure at the higher latitudes, and we have a major dip in the jet stream across the Midwestern and Eastern U.S. If I have a positive PNA, look at the bottom left, I get this huge upper level ridge, a strong western ridge, and then my jet stream downstream will basically carve out a deep trough where the cold air is forced southward into the eastern U.S. with a positive PNA. And then the image on the right shows a negative mode of the North Atlantic Oscillation, and you'll notice with a negative NAO, now it's not forecast to be strongly negative, but there still may be the potential for some higher latitude blocking into Greenland across the North Atlantic, and that would indicate a trough and colder than normal temperatures. Not necessarily snowy weather for the East Coast just yet, because we're still in the month of November and we still have relatively warmer waters off the East Coast. All right, now let's compare the water temperature anomalies over the Northeast Pacific and the Gulf of Alaska. Image on the left shows September of 2014. Now, when I've talked about this in the past videos about what's known as the blob. Typically, most specifically, the warm blob. And this formed in 2014 and resulted in this sea surface temperature configuration resulted in a persistent upper level ridge into Western Canada, into the Western U.S., and a deep trough over the Central and Eastern U.S. Look at the graphic on the right for September of this year, 2019. There is really not a lot of difference. There's a lot of similarity in the Gulf of Alaska, up along the U.S. West Coast. So again, could history be repeating itself this winter? That remains to be seen, but I just wanted to show you the similarities in these sea surface temperature anomalies. By the way, the legend on the bottom shows you the numbers, and the reds and maroons indicate above normal sea surface temperatures. Here are my final thoughts in tonight's video, and I just really want to get the word out because I'm a winter enthusiast, and I'm pretty excited about the pattern, honestly. The water temperatures off the coast are a little bit too warm for any kind of frozen precip if a storm tried to form along the East Coast. But anyway, let's get right into the final thoughts here. First of all, we have very cold temperatures that are going to move into the Eastern U.S. over the next 10 to 14 days. It's looking very cold and below normal for the next 2 weeks, really. Waves of cold will relentlessly strike. I say relentlessly because it's just one wave after another. It's almost as if somebody turned a faucet on and it's just not stop, and it's not going to stop dripping. It just seems like the door to the Arctic is wide open right now, and we're getting a direct connection from the Arctic all the way down to the Gulf Coast. So we'll see these waves of cold air. They're going to relentlessly strike, and again, those are the specific dates of the episodes of the coldest air: 8-9 November, 11-12 November, 13 November, 17 November, and 20 November. So we see this relentless attack of very cold air from the Arctic. The jet stream is basically pointed from the Arctic on down into the Eastern U.S. That's going to direct much colder air south, as that polar front jet stream, again, is carving out a large trough of the east. And we are having this, it really blows my mind about the stagnant upper airflow we're seeing with that upper level ridge and warmer than normal temperatures out west, and the trough and the much colder temperatures, much below normal temperatures in the east. And it really doesn't look like things are going to change much over the next 10 to 14 days. Now, teleconnections, as I showed you, they're all lining up for a colder than normal period. And when all the teleconnections align, we call this constructive interference. Now, what I didn't show you tonight was the Madden-Julian oscillation phase in the video, but I did take a look at it earlier, and it's also in a colder phase 8, during some of these colder outbreaks. The potential is there to see many temperature records broken across eastern cities. And so, especially down in the south, if something like this occurred, this kind of outbreak, see that purple shading all the way down the Gulf Coast around the 14th of November, around the middle of the month, this very well could threaten a lot of records across the southeastern U.S. that have stood the test of time for quite a while. So that is definitely a possibility. There could even be temperature records further north in cities that are more accustomed to starting to feel colder temperatures during November. Now, the similar sea surface temperature anomalies, very interesting compared to 2014 when we had the warm blob. Plus, we have that low solar activity. And again, lower solar activity generally tends to lead to a negative AO or negative Arctic oscillation and higher frequency of high latitude blocking. I don't have the name of the gentleman who did the research on this. I'm going to have to look into it. But I read a really good article about low solar activity and the teleconnections, the AO. Look at the AO on the left. I mean, that's as strongly negative as you'll see. And that's pretty impressive amplitude. We're almost down to between -4 and -5 value for the Arctic oscillation go negative. So research has shown it. That low solar activity, I really have a strong suspicion it's going to come into play this winter. Now, there's no sign of frozen precipitation for Southeast Virginia in this forecast video in the period. The water temperatures are still simply too warm, folks. Lower 60s, but we will continue to monitor this. Sometimes you can overcome warmer water temperatures, but it has to be extremely cold aloft. And it's very possible with strong northerly winds, we may, in the Southeast Virginia, see what's known as bay streamers, the bay streamer effect, where we get a cold, very cold upper level wind blowing over the relatively warmer waters of the Chesapeake Bay. And sometimes that will result in what's known as bay streamers. And I've seen it happen before in early December where certain sections of Hampton Roads actually got snow from base streamers. But what you're doing is you're blowing a very cold wind over a relatively warmer surface that's picking up heat and moisture from that low level water surface, and that's resulting in the formation of clouds and sometimes precipitation downwind. But again, we'll keep an eye on that. We'll continue to monitor that here at Spot On Weather. Now, if this pattern continues for a prolonged period of time, we really could be setting the table for a very interesting weather this winter, especially winter storms across the mid-Atlantic, as those water temperatures are going to drop off really, really quickly off the Virginia coast and Chesapeake Bay with these kind of cold surges. It's not going to, it's going to be accelerated based on the extent and how below normal these temperatures are. So we're going to keep an eye on things here at Spot On Weather. I wanted to get a video out. It's been a while since I made one, and this is real exciting if you're a winter enthusiast. I mean, if this were the pattern that we were seeing in January and especially early February, mid-January to early February, if we had a pattern like this would be if you want snow, this would be a dream come true. So again, I'm skeptical about longer range. I'm still looking at my factors for possible revisions on the winter outlook. But the bottom line here is we're really going all in on the cold early, and I'm just hoping that it's not going to rebound. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. In this case, I hope that we keep locked in with this kind of pattern, because I really would love to see some snowflakes this winter. I know a lot of folks out there would and agree with me on that. All right, that wraps things up at Spot On Weather this evening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. I'll continue to push forecasts out on the social media, on Facebook, the 7-day outlooks. I try to make blogs as well, and that kind of goes in more detail. All right, that wraps things up. If things change drastically over the coming days or the next week or so, I'll probably make another special video. All right, that wraps things up tonight. Spot On Weather. If we're not spot on, we're not doing it right. Have a great evening, everybody.